Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Operation Rainfall was a really special time in the Wii's life, very late in the system's life, when the system was starved for RPGs. These three amazing games were coming out in Japan only. Fans of the Wii and fans of RPGs in general wanted these games desperately to come out here in the States. Nintendo had no intentions of doing so. Thus began Operation Rainfall, which was a fan-led campaign to get these games brought over and localized for the West. Their passion was so strong, it eventually succeeded, and we got these amazing games here in the States. One of these happens to be one of my favorite games on the system, bar none. Go ahead and watch the video to find out. I want to give a special shout out to VitoFoJo99. He's one of my loyal viewers that was able to guess which game it was before the video went live. I appreciate you, man, always watching and commenting. Thank you guys and enjoy the video. So as you can see, without a doubt, the most successful of the three has been Xenoblade Chronicles. It's gone on to span a portable entry, a sequel on the Wii U, a remake on the Switch, and a sequel on the Switch as well. A fantastic series of RPGs, up near my favorite in terms of RPGs going to this day. Such an amazing game series. I think the first game had the most incredible premise backdrop for a story. In a world of RPGs that are constantly throwing the teenagers saving the world cliche, or the deadly miasma taking over the world, or the land ravaged by pollution, this game gives you a fresh setting where two giant titans were locked in battle. This battle raged on for so long that they actually ended up killing themselves, frozen in time, and their dead corpses have become littered with trees, population, and the world sprung up on the back of these two giants. So the world you explore is these two titans locked in battle. Just the coolest freaking setting for a game. The sequel did a fantastic job of continuing on the tradition, although not as cool as the first. I really enjoyed the Wii U entry, and oddly enough, the Wii U entry is one of the few Wii U games we haven't had ported to the Switch. Oddly enough, seeing as how the other games are on there, I thought we'd for sure get Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Switch, but a great series of games to come out of Operation Rainfall. Last Story was the second game that I played from the Operation Rainfall games, and I fell in love with it. It was a game from Mistwalker. It had an amazing story that very much different from their other two games on the 360, Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. This one focused on a band of mercenaries in this town, and it was all about the character interactions and the way they interacted with each other, the different personalities, the very strong script, excellent voice acting, that kind of English-British accent that I loved so much from Xenoblade. They do a fantastic job giving each character personality, fleshing out the personalities, and the way they interact with each other. There's some comedy in this. The battle system is awesome, with some stealth elements, real-time elements, using a great use of the Wiimote. I absolutely fell in love with The Last Story. I thought it was a fantastic game. Probably one of the best told stories I've played in an RPG of that generation. Just such a fantastic game. I can't recommend it enough. And it's a great limited edition here. It comes with a beautiful art book filled with some of the game's great artwork. Fantastic soundtrack. I cannot sing enough praise about The Last Story. Definitely check it out. Pandora's Tower takes place on the fictional continent of Imperia. Now, there's many lands that are all divided, and when there's division, there is war. At the start of the game, the war is over. However, tensions still run very high, so there's a festival going on to try to inspire some temporary peace. It's during this festival that one of the performers, named Elena, is stricken with a horrible curse. A man named Aaron, who is the main character of the game, comes to her rescue, and they both seek refuge of the 13 Towers. Now, earlier on, before the game's events, Aaron was gravely wounded in battle, and Elena took him in and was able to nurse him back to health, and they ended up falling in love, and they were both from opposite sides of the army, so they were supposed to be at war, so it's kind of a forbidden love story going on, but it's told very well. 13 Towers is an amazing setting for the game to take place in. It's basically a giant fortress suspended above a giant chasm known in the game as the Scar. And it is where basically the land has been ripped, torn asunder by the armies and the war, and it's being held in place from spreading by these 13 chains. It's such a powerful visual impact. The way it's depicted in the game, the use of color, the art direction is stunning. It makes for an amazing backdrop for the game itself. While en route to the 13 Towers, they encounter Mavda, who is the current guardian of the towers, and she explains to Aaron and Elena that for her to be cured of this disease, Aaron must enter the towers and slay the 13 masters that reside in the towers. Bring back the beast flesh. She must consume the flesh to slow the curse, and ultimately, after consuming all of the beast flesh, she'll be cured. Before you set foot into the towers, you start off in the observatory, and this is kind of acts like the game's hub. You're able to bring items back from the towers to Mavda to have her strengthen them, enhance armor, weapons, combine items, forge new weapons, more powerful weapons. It's all really helpful stuff in your quest. And the main draw of the observatory, that's where you spend time with Elena. That's where you talk to her. That's where you help improve her mood. You can give her gifts to make her more happy, strengthen that affinity gauge, strengthen that bond which becomes very important later on. On your way through the towers, you're going to be fighting numerous smaller enemies. You've got your sword, you're able to do a basic combo, you can hold down a button for a charged attack, and then you can also extend that charged attack through timed button presses for some more damage. But the highlight of the combat, and definitely the high point, is the Oracles chains. Now, for those of you that are familiar with God of War, Chains of Olympus, it's on par with that in terms of badassfulness and usefulness. Using the Wiimote and the on-screen pointer, you're able to direct the flow of the chain's attack. You're able to latch onto enemies, rip off sections of armor, exposing their weak points. You're able to latch onto flesh and rip flesh from the enemies. You can lasso them up and kind of whip them around the environment, causing considerable damage, smashing them in through the environment. You're able to bind two enemies together where they share attack bars because you've got them both bound together. You're able to whip onto enemies and kind of lasso them, and the longer you hold this lasso and pull them, the more powerful the attack becomes. It's a really free-for-all combat system that has a great deal of flexibility, and the controls are spot on. Being able to wield these chains around and do all kinds of damage using the Wiimote and the nunchuck in tandem works really well. I can't stress enough how much fun the combat is. And I've got to say, for as cool as the regular combat and doing combat with the regular enemies that populate the towers is, the highlight of the game is definitely when you make it to the top of the towers and you fight the masters. Now, these aren't just simple mindless boss battles. These are strategic, well thought out battles that often draw parallels to Shadow of the Colossus, where it's like a multi-tier step process to fighting these enemies. A couple of highlights: I remember fighting one master that was a fiend of the darkness, and he kind of retreated to the darkness to gain power and to be more evasive and harder to hit him. You're able to use the Oracles chains to kind of sink into his flesh and pull him out from the darkness into the light. We're able to do massive damage and rip off chunks of his armor, weaken him down, and eventually take him out. One of the masters, you're able to disable the legs to kind of give access to the back. From there, you can take access to the back of the head to cut off the flesh. Just really strategic, inventive, and highly creative boss battles that really spice things up, that really make all the effort of traversing through the towers that much more rewarding when you finally make it to the top. Now, one thing to keep in mind, that this is not just a mindless brawler, button masher, make your way to the top, rinse, repeat. All the while you're traversing through these towers, you really got to keep an eye on the affinity meter for Elena, because all the while you're in these dungeons, the advancement of the disease is spreading rapidly, often causing you midway through making your way to one of the masters, kind of hightailing it back to the observatory. And it's very important to keep track of routes that you took. A lot of times the Oracles chains can open up shortcuts to get back in faster time, because every time you rip flesh from one of the enemies or the masters, the second the flesh leaves the body, it starts to decay and wither, so it's not as powerful, not as effective in stalling the disease. So oftentimes, if you check your affinity meter and Elena is just in rough shape, you've got to make it back to the observatory and give her whatever flesh you have on hand. And I got to say, watching her consume this flesh is not a fate I would wish on anyone. You hand her this quivering mound of purple shit-like flesh, and it looks like it's disgusting, and watching her put it up to her mouth and hesitate and really be afraid and take that first bite and watching it stretch from her lips, it's disgusting, man. And I can only imagine what that must taste like. And it's a horrible thing to witness. I would not wish the eating of beast flesh on my worst enemy. I must state that when you leave the observatory and she's fine and she's wishing you bye, like, bye, Aaron, take care, be safe. And then midway through, watching the disease start to advance, watching her sprout tentacles and her flesh begin to rip and tear, and watching her in agony doubled over, you really feel for this woman. Oftentimes, games give you affinity gauges and time meters, and it can be tedious and can be kind of a pain in the ass, maybe annoying. This brings a whole new level to that, because you really feel for this woman that you're in love with, and watching her go through this and suffer, and knowing that you are able to quell that or ease that burden. It really becomes powerful stuff. Watching her suffer is not something that is fun. It's something that you really want to minimize, and it also plays into the endings that you get in the game. In the observatory, bringing back flesh, or spending time with her, talking to her, getting her gifts, talking to her, making her feel better, just making it a more pleasant stay for her, strengthens your bond, strengthens your affinity, and the stronger that is, the better the ending is going to be. Multiple endings based on how well you look after her. Take as much time as you can and talk to her and make sure she's happy and get her gifts that she enjoys. Stuff like a lamp to help spice up the living quarters for her so she can read easier. Just little stuff that goes a long way in providing that relief for her and also strengthening that relationship. It's a lot of fun and it's really fulfilling, something that I don't often see see in a video game. The strength and bond between Elena and Aaron is something really special. She's perfectly voice acted. Aaron can be a little bland, if I'm being honest, but she's done perfectly. That emotion, that raw emotion is captured perfectly. So I gotta say, overall, of the 3 games in Operation Rainfall, Pandora's Tower definitely received the less attention, the less hype, but I gotta say, it hit that sweet spot for me personally. The other 2 were great RPGs. This one just tugged at those heartstrings that certain few games are able to do. And the relationship between Elena and Aaron is such a great thing to unfold. You really feel for this woman. You feel the pain she's in. You watch the guttural emotion that she goes through and having to consume this flesh and how revolting it must be. You see the transformation reverse its effects and watch her go from being hunched over in pain and miserable to her flesh being slowly restored. The tentacles de-sprout and go away. Her flesh close up. This toll that must take on her over and over again is just unreal. It's shown in striking detail. The flesh eating is revolting. Everything about this game is very unique. The combat's great. Visuals are great for the Wii. The use of the pointer is great. The nunchuck is great. Everything about it, the music, fantastic. Overall setting, the story, it just comes together to form a one-of-a-kind game. This game deserves much more attention, and I wish that there'd be some kind of continuation in some form, but I know that's not going to be. Definitely don't miss Pandora's Tower. What a gem of a game, and definitely highly recommended. Hope you guys have enjoyed taking a look at, in my opinion, one of the more underrated action RPGs for the system. Pandora's Tower is worth every penny. It's such a fantastic game, very original, and I really enjoyed my time with it. It's great for multiple playthroughs. Definitely add this to your collection if you haven't already. It's going to get more expensive in the future. I just feel it. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode as always. GamezOfWar is nothing without you.